When the Gu family was on the verge of bankruptcy, the Gu couple came to our doorstep seeking a marriage alliance. My father, heartbroken that I had loved Jet Gu for 10 years, injected 10 billion to revive the Gu family and married me off to them. On our wedding night, Jet Gu folded me with red silk and took me fiercely again and again. A month later, I joyfully brought my pregnancy report to him only to overhear him betting with friends at a bar. Guess what?
Kira sighed.
Has been with over a dozen men. Who do you think the father of her baby is?
The
friends burst into laughter.
Young
Master Goe, I only did it 3 times. Surely it can't be mine. I think Ajayo was the wildest that night. He drove Kira sigh almost insane. I bet 100 it's his. Only then did I realize that the man who shared my bed on my wedding night wasn't Jet Gu. It was his dozen or so brothers. I rushed in like a mad woman demanding answers, but he just shrugged it off. Why the tears? If your family hadn't threatened to withdraw funding, forcing Tinking to leave, would I have done this to you? I'm telling you, the moment Tinking is willing to forgive me is the moment I'll let you
go.
Heartbroken, I asked for a divorce. But he threatened me with the video from that night and locked me in the basement. Don't be in such a hurry to
leave.
My buddies and I are still betting on who the bastard's father is. 8 months later, I died in childbirth in the basement, taking the unborn child with me. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn back to the day I begged my father for the dowry to secure the marriage alliance. This time on my wedding day, Jet Guy
turned red.
Kira, actually Jet likes you very much too. If you could marry into the family, Jet would be really
happy.
I suddenly woke up with a start and saw the Gu couple looking at me with sincere expressions in a daze. I realized I had been reborn. Mrs. Gu gently held my hand and said with a beaming smile, Auntie knows you've had a crush on Jet for 10 years. If our 2 families were to unite through marriage, my parents could only offer an awkward smile. They all knew too well. The Gu family's proposal was merely because they were on the brink of bankruptcy and desperately needed my family's $1 billion investment. But they also knew how hopelessly in love I was with Jet
Gu,
thinking that if I could marry him, as I wished, it might not be so bad after all. But now I wish for nothing more than his death. I snapped back to reality and interrupted her, saying, I don't want to marry Jet Gu.
As soon as
these words left my mouth, all eyes turned toward me. It seems unexpected that I, who usually follow Jet Gu around like a devoted puppy, would actually refuse this marriage. Mrs. Gu looked at me in shock. Kira, did you have a fight with Jet? Auntie will scold him when we
get back.
I shook my head. No need. Ginjin pondered for a moment.
Is it
because of giganting?
Seeing that I remained silent, he sighed. Jiang.
Yanting is just a financially disadvantaged student. Our family sponsors Jet only showed her some kindness out of pity. Don't worry, uncle. We'll have Jiang Yanting sent away as soon as we get home. She won't appear in front of Jet again. In my past life, he said the same thing, but it only earned me Jet Gu's resentment. He believed it was me who forced Jianganting to leave. That's why on the first night of our marriage, Jet gens of his friends and tormented me the entire night. After I found out, he went so far as to lock me in the basement, forcing me to bear a child just to gamble on whose it might
be.
When my parents sensed something was wrong and came looking for me, Jet guamlessly showed them the video of that night's torment, saying with a face full of resentment, "This is the fine daughter you raised.
She was secretly
Involved with so many men behind my
back. Disgusting.
After watching the video, my parents were heartbroken and both fell seriously ill. Not only did Jetgu show no remorse, but he also brought Jiang Yanting before me, sneering as he said, "Once your parents die, I'll take over the SA group and give it to Tinking as an apology."
My
heart turned to ashes, and I died in childbirth. Recalling this, I trembled with rage and blurted out, "Jetgu isn't worthy of me marrying him."
Hearing
this, Ju Tingsun's expression darkened. Although the Gu is struggling now, if the Sai family is willing to invest, I'm certain the Sai family won't lose out. What he said was true.
In my
previous life, after my parents injected billions to save the Gu family, their business thrived more and more. The Sai family did nothing, yet effortlessly earned hundreds of millions in profits. Right now, I won't let money slip through my fingers either, I said
coldly.
I will marry into the Gu family, but not Jet Gu, it's Huan Ju.
The
air suddenly fell silent for a few seconds. Ginjin abruptly stood up. You mean Wai Chuan? His legs are paralyzed. He can't even stand up. Are you joking? Dad also hurriedly tried to dissuade me. Kira, don't be reckless. I gently patted the back of my father's hand, signaling him not to panic. Although Gahan is Jetgu's uncle, he is only 4 years older than him. We grew up together and could be considered childhood sweethearts. But later a car accident left him unable to stand again, and he gradually faded from my sight.
In my
previous life, when I was imprisoned in the basement by Jetgu, he was the first to find me. He kept shouting, "Don't be afraid," over and over, pounding on the door repeatedly. I clearly saw that his legs weren't paralyzed at all. Later, Jetgu arrived, and a group of people beat him half to death. I remember Jet guing viciously, "Uncle, when I hired someone to hit you with a car before, why didn't it kill you? You wanted to compete with my dad for business back then, and now you're trying to steal my woman. Why are you so despicable?"
Gu
Han not only didn't get angry, but also knelt down before him, saying, "Let Kira go, and I'll do anything you ask." Jet Ju sneered, slamming his head against the wall with a series of dull thuds. I will never forget the words Jae Gahan said. "Kira, I've been searching for you for so
long.
So, how could choosing Juhan ever be considered reckless?"
On the
contrary, Jetgu, I must make him pay the price. Gathering my thoughts, I turned to the Gu couple and said, "I've made up my mind. I will marry Gu Haichuan." Seeing my firm stance, everyone stopped trying to persuade me and nodded in agreement. After making this decision, I felt a sense of relief and decided to go find Jukin at his
bar.
But at the bar entrance, I saw Jet Ju and Jiang Yanting.
Jet Gu noticed me,
and his cheerful expression instantly turned impatient. "Kirasai, why are you so annoying? Wherever I go, you follow." His buddies behind him burst into laughter. "I told you she'd show up
tonight.
I bet if we told her to lick young Master Gu's shoes, she'd drop to her knees right away." Upon hearing this, Jet Ju flashed a wicked smile, giving me a meaningful look as he shifted his weight from one foot to the other.
A
wave of disgust surged within me, and I coldly stepped around him.
Move. Jet. Guing.
Back to reality and grabbing my arm. "Kirasai, I already know about you using the investment as leverage to force a marriage alliance. What kind of act are you putting on now? Did you really think playing hard to get would make me spare you a second glance?" I gave him a faint glance and spoke the truth. "I have no intention of forming a marriage alliance.
With you.
Jet Guel silent for a moment, before suddenly letting out a mocking
sneer.
No intention. Guer has already received a 10 billion investment from your father, and you still say there's no intention.
Do you have any idea how
Cheap you look? Desperately begging me to marry you like this, I nodded. No, which is why I won't marry you. Listen carefully to what I'm saying. Again. Jet Gil. Jiang Yanting spoke up quietly beside
them.
Brother Jet, I think Kirasai
doesn't want to see me.
If you don't marry her, the Gu will. Forget it.
I'll
leave now. Jet Gu abruptly let go of my hand, turned around and pulled her into his embrace. What does she even matter? Even if she gets her wish and marries me, I still won't love her.
Tinking be good.
We'll go take our wedding photos tomorrow. In my heart, you're the only one I consider my wife.
The
onlookers immediately started whistling and calling out, sister-in-law to Jianyanting.
Jet wants.
As if waiting for my reaction. He used to love seeing me embarrassed, but now I felt nothing. Marry whoever you want.
I
couldn't care less. Just as I was about to leave, Giganting blocked my path. Kirasai, stop pretending. The news about the marriage alliance between the Sai and Gu families was already reported by the media this afternoon.
I
can overlook the incident where you hired thugs to humiliate me, but I beg you, please treat Jet Gu. Speaking of the thugs incident, it was actually orchestrated by Jiang Yanting herself. A ploy to frame me and play the
victim.
It wasn't like I hadn't tried to prove my innocence, but Jet Guy refused to believe me now. I can't be bothered to explain either. Upon hearing this, Jet Goose's face darkened. Why beg her? A woman who stops at nothing to achieve her goals can't possibly compare to you. As he spoke, he warned me, marrying you was just a transaction of interests.
If
I find out you've bullied Tinting again, I won't let you off. Before he could finish, I looked up and cut him off. Fine, got it. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. With that, I turned and walked into the bar without looking back.
What?
Sister-in-law. In a few days, Jet Gu will have to respectfully
call me auntie.
Entering the bar, I headed straight for the private room at the very back. Pushing the door open, I saw Gu Han sitting in a wheelchair. He turned his back to me. Why didn't you choose Jet? Without much thought, I leaned down and kissed his lips. Don't you want to marry me? 3.
His
Adam's apple bobbed. And after a moment he whispered, I do. The next day, Mrs. Gu sent someone to pick me up and take me to the Gu villa. She said, the guides have been wearing the same wedding dress for years and asked me to get measured. The butler carefully took out the wedding dress from the rosewood cabinet, his eyes filled with joy.
If
Second Master Ju sees you in this dress, he won't be able to take his eyes off
you.
What did you just say? The sudden voice made my heart skip a beat. Jet Gu appeared at the stairway at some point, with Giganting following behind him, looking at me with a smug expression. The butler was about to speak when I cut in first, saying, it's nothing.
Jet
Gu'd at me for several seconds before letting out a cold laugh. Don't think that just because you're about to marry
me,
you can act like the young mistress of the house. As he spoke, he snatched the wedding dress from my hands.
Let
Tinking wear this dress first, then you
can have it.
The butler's face turned
pale.
Young master, this is the wedding dress passed down by the Gu family.
It
has always been reserved only for brides of the Zhou family. Giganting suddenly burst into tears. As expected, Kirasai has her ways. The moment you arrived, even a servant dares to speak to me like
this.
As soon as the words fell, Jet Gu pointed at the butler and scolded angrily. You dare disobey my orders. Measure Ting's size first. I took a deep breath. No, originally the wedding date between Guan and me was already
tight.
How could we have time to deal with their nonsense now?
As I spoke, I
Reached out to take back the wedding
dress.
but before my hand could even touch it, Giganting suddenly let out a sharp scream, stumbled backward, and fell straight down the stairs. Giganting lay at the bottom of the stairs, blood seeping from her forehead. Her face turned deathly pale, and with trembling fingers, she pointed at me. Why did you push me? Seeing this, Jet Gui rushed down, picked her up, and ran out without looking back. Ting.
Such
clumsy performances were nothing new for Giganting. Yet every single time Jet Gui, I sighed and was about to leave when my phone suddenly vibrated.
It was a
message from Gu Haichuan saying he was waiting for me at the usual place.
My
mood instantly brightened and my steps became noticeably lighter. But just as I stepped out of the Gu family villa's front gate, I was abruptly pulled into a car by Jet Gu, who had turned back.
I frowned.
What are you doing? I struggled to get out of the car, but he held me down firmly. Ting is bleeding.
You
need to go and give her a blood transfusion. Are you insane?
I
exclaimed. That little injury would heal before we even reached the hospital.
Let
me out of the car.
Seeing me take out my
phone to make a call, he snatched it away and threw it out the window.
Kira, sigh.
You've already gotten your wish by marrying me. Why are you still treating Ting like this? As the car was about to start moving, I shouted, Jet Gu.
I
faint at the sight of blood, and I'm anemic. A transfusion could kill me. But Jet Gu scoffed. Stop pretending. Your act doesn't work on me. Soon we arrived at the Gu family's private hospital, Jet Gu Fusion room, and said to the nurse, hurry up and draw as much as Ting needs. The moment the first needle went in, my entire body trembled and my consciousness began to blur. I don't know how much time passed, but I found myself lying weakly on the ground, too feeble to move. When I tried to call for a doctor, I realized I was completely alone in the transfusion room. It turned out Jet Gu had already taken all the medical staff to care for Giganting. Just when I thought I was about to die, I suddenly felt a pair of strong arms lifting me up. Don't sleep, Kira, sigh. Don't sleep. When I woke up, I saw Guan, his eyes red. I came too late with those words. He took out an exquisite diamond ring and slipped it onto my ring finger. Kira, marry me. Only then did I realize that he had planned to propose to me at our usual spot this afternoon. He said, the proper ceremony must be observed. I nodded in agreement. The next second, he made a phone call. Move the wedding to tonight. I was slightly startled, but the wedding dress is in Giganting's hands. Jiuhuan chuckled softly, his eyes filled with adoration. It's all right. I've already prepared one for you. That night I appeared at the hotel, wearing a one-of-a-kind wedding dress. Jet Gu hurried over, his face full of impatience. All I asked was for you to donate some blood. And you're playing games with me like this. You're just jealous that I'm the one by Ting's side, aren't you? Now that I'm back, are you happy? As soon as he finished speaking, Juichuan's voice came from behind him. Jet, is that any way to greet your aunt for Jet? Gu's eyes widened instantly. What? What aunt? Guan stepped past him, pushing the wheelchair straight to my side. Tonight is May and Kira's wedding. Didn't you? No? I looked up and smiled. I told him, but he didn't believe me. Jet Gu froze in shock. How is this possible? My Parents went to the Sai family compound to arrange a marriage for me. The one you're supposed to marry is clearly me. The butler spoke quietly. Young master, the arranged marriage has always been for the second master. Jet Gue clearly still didn't believe the butler's words. He straightened his suit and feigning composure, grabbed my hand. Sai, stop playing these childish tricks. Let's hurry through the ceremony. Tinking is waiting for me.
I
Instinctively shook off his hand, but he just sneered. Though tonight is our wedding night, I won't be coming back to stay with you. I promised Tinking I'd be with her, so don't waste my time.
In my
past life, he said the same thing.
But
back then, I naively believed that once we got married, he might gradually come
to accept me.
So after the wedding, I tried every possible way to make him
stay.
Seeing this, Jiu Tinjin secretly arranged for someone to send Jiang Yanting abroad overnight. After learning about it, he pretended not to care on the surface. But on our wedding night, he covered my eyes with red silk and handed me over to more than a dozen of his brothers. Now looking at him, I feel nothing but disgust. Noticing the situation, Guahan shielded me behind him and said coldly, Jet, out of respect for you being my nephew, I won't argue with you, but please have some self-respect. He was about to say something more when the butler handed over the invitation. Young master, this invitation has been in your room for a while, but you never went back to check
it.
Only then did he carefully read the contents of the invitation. A few seconds later, his hands began to tremble slightly and a flicker of panic flashed in his eyes. He immediately demanded, Juan, are you in on this act with her?
Guan
replied calmly, after tonight, she will be my wife. Jet, it's time you faced reality. Jet Goose suddenly laughed, a hint of mockery in his smile. Sai, you've been fawning over me for 10 years. How could you possibly be willing to marry someone else? And a paralyzed man at that. I retorted without hesitation. You're wrong. In my eyes,
he's far better than you.
Instantly, enraged, he grabbed my wrist and tried to drag me out. Seeing this, Gahan grew anxious and was about to rise from his wheelchair. I quickly broke free from Jet, gently placing both hands on Gohua's shoulders. I knew he was pretending, but I also guessed there was a reason for his fig-ned paralysis.
I didn't want him to expose himself for my
sake so soon. Turning my head toward the banquet hall entrance, I said, the guests have already started arriving. Jet Gu, don't embarrass the Gu.
With
that, I pushed Guan and walked away. Sai, Jet Gu roared behind me.
If
you turn back now and stop the shared, I can pretend nothing happened, but if you don't turn back, once my parents arrive, I will definitely break off the engagement with you. I'll make you the laughing stock of the entire city.
I
turned a deaf ear and kept walking forward. Anyway, the one who will make a fool of themselves tonight definitely won't be me. After leaving Jet Goose sight, Go Haichuan whispered to me, Did you know my leg was fine all along? Yes, I replied softly. But I also know you had your reasons. You can tell me when you're ready. The wedding officially began as my father led me slowly down the red carpet. Since it was a hastily arranged wedding, the Gu had just rushed back from another city.
Jet
quaffed a sigh of relief upon seeing their arrival, then stepped onto the stage in one stride. All the guests' eyes turned toward him in unison. He straightened his sleeves and said with a face full of sarcasm, Thank you all for coming tonight. But unfortunately, our Gu family will absolutely never allow such a malicious and scheming woman to marry in. I now declare that I am breaking off my engagement with Kira.
Sigh.
As soon as these words were spoken, the guests below the stage erupted in chaos. He's breaking off the engagement. What is he doing? Can he actually decide this matter?
Jet glanced around, his gaze finally settling on the
Gu couple. Dad, Mom, the one I truly love is Tinking. Although the Sai family helped us, I can't go against my heart.
I'll repay the money I owe them in the
future. I watched Jet Gu on stage with cold eyes, beginning to feel embarrassed for him. Not to mention that tonight's
groom isn't him.
Just consider how my family generously spent billions to save the Gu family, and all he has to say is a casual, I'll pay it back later. Doesn't he realize how ridiculous that sounds? And to think he had the audacity to humiliate me in front of so many people for giganting.
He must have a
death wish. My father came to his senses, his face instantly turning ashen. What does the Gu family mean by this? Jet Gu not only showed no fear but also turned to my father and said coldly, and aren't you ashamed of threatening the Gu investment just to force Karai to marry me? I was going to give Kirasai another chance,
but she
took a chicken feather as a command arrow. Utterly ungrateful. As he spoke, he glanced at Guyuhan on the side of the stage. Uncle, at your age still playing such childish games with Kira.
Sigh.
How embarrassing. The Gu couple turned pale with fright and hurried onto the stage to pull him back.
Jet, shut up.
Get off the stage now. Just then, a sharp female voice came from outside the
door.
Giganting rushed in and knelt directly in front of me, tears welling up in her eyes as she pleaded. Karai, Jet, and I are truly in love. I beg you, don't resort to such underhanded tactics to take him away. Please. I looked at her and couldn't help but find it laughable. If they don't come to cause trouble after tonight, they can do whatever they want. But now that they've made such a scene, it's not looking good. Jet Ginj Jianganting in this state was filled with heartache. He pointed at me and said arrogantly, you can marry me if you want, but you must accept Tinking living with us. I have to spend at least 5 days a week at her place. If Tinking has children in the future, they must share everything equally with your children. As soon as these words were spoken, the room erupted in uproar with the elders shouting, "This is absurd." I felt my father's grip on my hand tighten. He must have finally understood why I didn't choose Jet Gu. I looked at Jet Gu and retorted, "How can you be so certain that the person I'm marrying is you?" As soon as the words left my mouth, Johan wheeled himself onto the stage in his wheelchair. He clapped his hands, and the next second, the large screen began displaying the hastily taken wedding photos of him and me, several of which showed us passionately kissing. The guests below the stage whispered among themselves, "Actually, Kirasai and Juichuan make quite a good match. Who would have thought?" She chased Jet Gu. Now Jet Gu has to call her aunt. Jet Gu pointed at the person speaking in the audience and shouted, "What aunt? Haven't I made it clear enough?" They are. Just before he could finish, Mrs. Ju panicked and quickly covered his mouth. "Jet, you want to marry Jianganting?" "Right. I have no objections. Now get out of here." Hearing this, Gianganting smiled triumphantly. Jet Gwen speaking, but the moment he looked up, he clearly saw the large screen behind him. He froze instantly, as if finally realizing that no one had been lying. Pointing at the wedding photos, his face flushed red, and he stammered, "Kirasai, when did you betray me? How could you cheat on me?" Hearing this, I couldn't
help but laugh.
Stop saying things that could be misunderstood. We were never together in the first place. So, how can you accuse me of betrayal? Jetgu's face was filled with disbelief before he grabbed Guan by the collar and roared.
You fought my dad for money back then.
Now you're fighting me for a woman.
How
despicable can you be? At this point, Jiao Tingxin's pupils trembled with shock, and he slapped Jet across the face. You, Unphil's son. What nonsense are you spouting? Your uncle has never taken anything from me, and from the very beginning the person Kira Sai was going to marry was your uncle. Jetgu stood, frozen in place, momentarily speechless. Gohan glared at him coldly. Apologize to Kira Sai. Apologize to the
Sai family.
6. The crowd below, also, began pointing at Jetju and murmuring. This young master of the Gu is too arrogant, isn't he?
Yes.
The Sai family saved the Gu, and yet he dares to treat Miss Kira Sai like this. Isn't he afraid the Sai family might change their mind? Upon hearing these words, Jiao Tingjin quickly explained to my father.
Kira will be my sister-in-law from now on. I
definitely won't allow Jet to be so
rude.
Tonight was due to our lack of
discipline.
In the future, the Gu family's business will surely increase the Sai family's share by an additional 20%. My father's face was cold, his gaze sharp as a knife, fixed on Jetgu. Seeing this, Jiao Tingjin grabbed Jetguy by the shoulder and forced him to his
knees.
You Unphil? Apologize to your aunt now. At that moment, Jiangenting suddenly fell to her knees before me, tears streaming down her face like pear blossoms in the rain. What does this have to do with Jet? It's all because Kira Sai didn't explain things clearly to him. That's why he misunderstood. Brother Jet has never suffered any grievances since childhood. How could he kneel before a woman?
I'll
apologize on his behalf. Before her words had even settled, Madame Jiao
kicked her to the ground.
Mrs. Jiao pointed at her furiously and said, If it weren't for you, this vile woman Kira Sai would be my daughter-in-law now. It's all your fault. You seduced my son and made him lose his senses.
Get
out of here. Jiang Yanting lay on the ground looking at Jet Guane only to find him staring blankly at me, not even glancing at her. Panicked, she crawled on all fours to Jetgu, clutching the hem of his clothes. It's okay, brother.
Jet.
I'll marry you. I won't betray you, like Kira Sai did. Jet gallantly shook off her hand.
No.
How could Kira Sai possibly betray me? Giganting tried to step forward again but was kicked once more by Mrs. Gu. Starting today, the Gu family won't give you a single cent, and I'll make sure the entire industry knows exactly what kind of person you
are.
Giganting turned pale with fright and quickly hid in Jetgu's arms, sobbing. I won't leave, brother Jet. Never, ever. But Jet gushed her away. Abruptly, Yanting, go get the Gu's wedding gown back. Kira Sai must have chosen that __ because she lost the
gown.
Madame Guz's face instantly turned ashen. That was our Gu family heirloom passed down from our ancestors. How dare you even mention it?
Gu.
Tingjin let out a long sigh and waved his hand to the people behind him. Take him back and make him reflect on his actions. Jetgu didn't even have the strength to resist, only muttering to himself, how could this happen? After he was taken away, the wedding ceremony continued as planned. I held Gichuan's hand and went through all
the procedures step by step.
I heard him whisper in my ear, I've liked you since 10 years ago. When we returned to the Gu villa, Jetgu was sitting at the entrance. Upon seeing us, he immediately dropped his previous wild demeanor and obediently called out, "Auntie 7.
I
Responded expressionlessly within. Walked straight inside. Jiu Tinjin, visibly relaxed when he saw this scene. He quickly walked over to me and said in a hushed voice, "Karan, he's been in a terrible state since the incident. He only seemed slightly better
tonight.
I hope you can help comfort him properly in the future. I only have this one younger brother. I don't want to see him continue like this." Back in the room after some thought, I finally spoke
Up.
Onion, your elder brother doesn't
Seem to be guarding against you as
outsiders say. He appears to genuinely
care about you.
Guichuan remained silent for a moment before looking at me and saying, "I faked paralysis because I suspect the person who hit me was Jet.
Gu.
I didn't tell you earlier because I was worried you might still have feelings for him." I recalled what Jet Gu had said in my previous life and silently nodded. At that moment, the door was suddenly pushed open. Jet Gual, carrying 2 glasses of wine, a strange smile on his face. "Auntie, I've come to apologize." "No need," I said coldly, without hesitation. "Leave us alone and don't disturb us." He burst into laughter. "I called you Auntie once, and you really think you're my elder now? Kira."
Sigh.
"How come I never noticed? You were this desperate before?"
Even a
___ isn't safe from you.
Get out.
Juichuan warned. Jet Gu turned to look at Gu Haichuan, laughing even more arrogantly. "Uncle, the Gu will be mine.
From now on.
Shouldn't it be you, the useless one, who gets out?" With that, he suddenly stepped forward, gripping my chin forcefully. "Only I can dump others. No one dumps me, including you." His strength was overwhelming, and he pinned me against the table. Seeing this, Han immediately rushed over, yanking him back violently. Jet gwashed heavily to the ground, only to be immediately run over by Guan's wheelchair, letting out a piercing scream. "You, Guichuan," looked down at him condescendingly. "If you dare lay a finger on my wife, I'll kill you." Jet Gu got up from the ground and spat out some water. "You, what can ___ do? Tonight I'm going to have my way with that crazy woman Kira Sai right in front of you. Let's see what you can do about it." He raised his foot to kick
Johan.
But to his surprise, Gio suddenly stood up, grabbed his leg, and
Twisted it backward.
Jet Ju fell heavily to the ground again with a dull thud.
He
saw Gu Han standing upright, his face deathly pale, his voice trembling. "You, how can you stand up? This is impossible." Just then, Juichuan's phone vibrated. He glanced at the message and, without a word, picked me up and carried me outside. As we passed by Jet Gu,
his
voice carried a chilling coldness.
"Your
time is up."
Carried by Guan.
I arrived in the living room where Gu Tinjin and Madame Gui were descending the stairs in their pajamas, asking what's going on. But when they saw Gu Haichuan standing, their expressions instantly turned to overwhelming joy. Ginjin looked at me in disbelief. "Kira, you're truly a blessing to our Gu family." The moment you arrived, Hichuan got better. Guan, however, remained silent, his icy gaze fixed on the staircase. Gui Tinjin sensed something was wrong and whispered to me, "What happened?" I recounted everything that had just occurred in detail. Gui Tinjin, upon hearing this, trembled with rage. "That beast, I'll
kill him today."
At that moment, a man in a black suit hurried over and handed a document folder to Gu Haichuan. Gichuan opened the folder, which contained photocopies of chat records and a USB drive. Jet Gu's face turned deathly pale the moment he saw those items. He rushed down the stairs in a frenzy, snatching the copies and tearing them apart wildly. You're slandering me, framing me, then driving me out so you can seize the Gu family's fortune.
Aren't you?
Guan let out a cold laugh and directly inserted the USB drive into the computer. Soon, Jet Gus' voice came through the speakers loud and
clear.
Hit him hard. I want Guahan, either dead or crippled. That way he won't be able to compete with my dad for the inheritance, and everything will be mine in the future. Gu Tingsun's face turned ashen upon hearing this.
He
strode step by step toward Jet Gu, raising his hand and delivering a resounding slap. So it was you. How dare you? Huan is my own brother. The Gu family's assets rightfully include his
share.
I never once thought he was competing with me for them. Moreover, he's your uncle. You beast. How could you bring yourself to do such a thing? With every word he spoke, he delivered a harsh slap. Jet Gus' face quickly swelled up like a pig's head, though her heart ached for him. Madame Zhou could only turn her head away at this moment, tears streaming uncontrollably. You've really gone too far this time. Only then did Gu Huan speak up. Actually, I wasn't completely unconscious that day.
I
clearly saw the Gu family emblem on the tires of the car that hit me.
So, I'm
absolutely certain it was done by someone from the Gu family. I just didn't know exactly who it was, which is why I pretended to be paralyzed to make the killer let their guard down.
I
didn't want to believe it either.
But
later, all the evidence pointed straight to Jet Ju. Upon hearing this, Zhou Tinjun punched Jet Gu, knocking him to the
ground. 8.
At that moment, Giant Ganting pushed the door open and walked in, holding her wedding dress. Seeing the mess on the floor and Jet Gu lying face down, she let out a scream and rushed over frantically. What are you doing? She threw herself beside Jet. Gu took in his blooded face and turned to shout at Zhou Tinjun. Uncle, how could you do this? Is your son the only heir of the Gu family? Zhou Tinjun stood still, letting out a bitter cold laugh. Heir, is he worthy? He slumped onto the sofa with a thud. He's not my biological son at all. Mrs. Gu could no longer hold back, covering her face as she burst into tears. He's the child of an old friend. At that time, he was only a few months old. We couldn't bear to see him with no one to rely on.
And since I
couldn't conceive, we took him in and raised him. I looked coldly at Jet Gu, a mocking smile curling at the corner of my lips.
So it was all fake.
No wonder. You're so obsessed with what you can't
have.
No, that's not true. Jet Geo shook his head frantically. You're lying to
me.
You must be lying. Zhang Yanting stood frozen in place. Even if we're not blood related, all these years of feelings were real.
She grabbed
Ginsen's sleeve. Uncle, please, for the sake of having lived together for over 20 years, don't drive him away. Okay, get away. Jet Gue suddenly erupted, shoving Giant Ganting aside. It's all because of you. If it weren't for your meddling back then, how could Kirasai and I have ended up like this? Get out. Get as far away as you can.
Zhang
Yanting staggered back 2 steps, biting her lip hard. Then what about our child? Jet Gus' movement suddenly
froze.
The next second, he lunged at Giant Ganting, pinned her down, and began relentlessly punching her abdomen.
It's
all your fault, he roared between blows. I thought I didn't love Kirasai, but I was wrong. Only when I saw her about to marry someone else did I realize I can't live without her. It's all because of you. You made me lose. Kirasai Zhang Yanting pleaded in agony, but Jet Gu seemed deaf to her cries, his fist striking harder. Soon, bright red blood, began to spread beneath Jiangenting.
Jet.
Ju stared at the glaring pool of blood before slowly releasing his grip.
It's
over. It's fine now. Get out of here, he snapped. Everyone was stunned by his actions, taking a long moment to realize they should call the police. The police officer arrived and immediately escorted Jet Ju into the police car. Ju Tinjin took a deep breath and handed the USB drive to the officer. Please investigate the Huan car accident as well. After the police took Jet Guji away, Gu Tinjin slumped into his chair and said to Ju Hichuan, actually, I could tell long ago that Jet Gu was useless. All these years I've been considering handing the company over to you. He gave a bitter
laugh.
It's just as well now.
Since I
couldn't teach him properly, let the law teach him instead. Several months later, news arrived. Jet Gu was sentenced to 10 years for attempted murder and intentional assault. After the miscarriage, Jianganting developed mental health issues and was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Thanks to my father's 10 billion investment, the Gu family not only revived from the brink of collapse, but also achieved new
glory.
Our Sai family naturally reaped substantial benefits as well. I suddenly realized that making mistakes doesn't matter. What's important is choosing again. That concludes the first story.
Stay tuned.
The next one is even more exciting. I was reborn back to the second year of my marriage when my husband brought home his adopted son, Xiao Hao. Along with him came his first love, Wang Yinan. Before I could even protest, he said to me, your grandfather was a landlord and your family background is problematic. Then I married you despite the pressure. Now consider this as repaying a favor to me. He used my salary to take her to the doctor, forgetting that I too was coughing up blood at night due to pneumonia. Without even batting an eye, he bought the vintage bicycle I'd been talking about for 2 years only for Wang Yanan and her child to ride it.
I
didn't say a word. I just quit my job, asked a judge I knew to draft divorce papers, and leased a plot of land in the suburbs to start a nursery. What are men worth in this second life of mine? All I want is to make money. Lily, come quick and see who's in the house.
Just off my
shift at the processing plant, I dragged my exhausted body home when my husband pulled me into the living room. Auntie, Shu, how missed you so much. The child I've been sponsoring for 2 years threw himself into my arms, affectionately nuzzling my face. Today was supposed to be a joyous day celebrating Hao officially becoming our son. But now all I feel is a chill running down my spine. Pushing Ho Hao aside, I turn to the woman sitting at the table and demand, who is she? Truth be told, I already know who that woman is. In my past life, she was a constant thorn in my side for decades. Impossible to forget even if I
tried.
She is Hao's mother. Seeing Wang Yanan's awkward demeanor at the dining table, Liao Jie gave an embarrassed smile, stepped forward, and placed a hand on her shoulder. Intimate and natural.
I
sneered inwardly, but feigned confusion on my face. But didn't you say 2 years ago that Xiaoa was an orphan? How did a mother suddenly appear out of thin air? No sooner had the words been spoken than Wang Yan stood up. It's my fault. Back then I had no choice. I couldn't take care of Ho Hao, so I had to leave him at the orphanage gate. After finally saving up some money, I spent it all on my illness. Liao Jie grew anxious, frowning as he gently helped her sit back down. Lily, you have no idea how much she's suffered all these
years.
Let's take her in for now, at least until she finds a job.
He was
handsome with a good figure, standing beside Wang Yan, his shadow falling on her shoulder, looking every bit like a loving couple. Watching them, my eyes suddenly welled up with tears.
In my
previous life, it was just like this. She kept staying and eventually never left. How is her son after all? So, naturally, he favored her even more after starting work. He even bought a small Western-style house and moved Wang Yanan and my husband in to live there. Social media was often filled with photos of their happy family of 3. While I didn't even have a child and couldn't get a divorce because Liao was afraid that if they divorced and he got together with Wang Yinan, people would point fingers at them, afraid others would call her a homewrecker if they didn't divorce. People would just assume their good relationship was because of their adopted son.
How is the bond? When
others asked why I never appeared in photos, he would say she's introverted, doesn't like taking pictures or going
out.
And so the infamous reputation of being jealous and petty was pinned on me for life. Now, as I listen to Liao Jie's defense, I simply ask, husband, do you really not know this, Miss Wang?
Liao Jie
nods decisively.
But when I pull out a
photo of them together from their youth, from under the bed, he suddenly becomes furious out of embarrassment. Shu Lily, you went through my things.
How
despicable. You're right. Considering your background, it's no surprise your character is so poor. I must have been
blind.
After having his shame exposed, Liao started spouting incoherent insults. He said, my background was bad because my grandfather used to be a landlord after he was overthrown.
My
family collapsed and became an object of scorn for everyone around us. Liao's parents were the most genuine farmers, with a clean family background. Originally, they didn't think much of me, but later he must have heard the news of his first love getting married somewhere, which must have struck a nerve. He even threatened to take his own life to force his parents to agree to our marriage, even though many people gossiped behind our backs on our wedding
day.
He still hosted several banquet tables. He said, Lily, don't worry. Your husband will make sure you have a grand occasion and will always protect
you.
But now the one who promised to protect me is the one stabbing me in the heart. All because I exposed his lies.
My heart is bleeding.
Yet I force a smile, pretending everything is fine. With Wang Yan and watching, I can only desperately cling to that ridiculous
pride.
Shu Lily. Speaking of the past, Liao paused as if remembering something and looked up at me. Back then, despite your poor background, I married you under pressure. Now consider it as repaying a favor to me. Let Yanan stay. I couldn't help but laugh at these absurd words. We're husband and wife, family. Yet here he is bargaining favors with me. He didn't even call me wife anymore. Just bluntly used Shu Lily. All because he's afraid I might make things difficult for his first love. Sure, you can stay then. I nodded and turned to leave. Except there's no place for me in this home anymore.
Liao Jie
didn't follow me. Behind me, I even heard the sound of chairs being moved and dishes being arranged. It's all
right.
Let's eat first, he said to the mother and son with an air of nonchalance, even though I had already seen his true nature in my past life. Why can't I stop crying now? Perhaps it's because this body belongs to my younger self. Still, deeply in love with Liao. I had no money on me and couldn't stay at a hotel. The only place I could think of was my old home in the mountains, 30 kilometers away. Grandma was there, borrowing the moonlight. I gritted my teeth and walked through half the night. Finally, returning to my old home at the crow of the rooster. It was clearly the middle of the night. Yet Grandma's house was still lit. And, even more surprising, someone was sitting in the yard, lost in thought. Seeing my pitiful state, Grandma burst into tears. She said, "My dear Lily, that bastard Liao Jierer is truly inhuman." I was still wearing the thin dark blue factory work clothes, with yellow-black dust covering my nostrils and the corners of my mouth. Grandma was heartbroken. She boiled water for me to bathe and heated up a meal for me. Watching me wolf down my food, she couldn't stop sighing.
Grandma
Always said that boy wasn't good enough for you. Originally, with my high school diploma, I could have found a decent job at the department store, but Liao's power plant was too far for me, and he found it inconvenient.
So he got me a
Job at the nearby chemical plant. Instead, the air over there was foul, with stinky fumes constantly billowing from the big chimneys and dust everywhere. Every day I ended up covered in grime. Yet for Liao, in my past life, I actually endured such work for 30 years. Now I hold Grandma to comfort her. Don't worry, Grandma.
soon
I'll deal with both this person and this
job.
I only stayed in my hometown for a day before I had to return to the factory for work. Liao didn't come to
Pick me up.
It was my grandmother who drove the ox cart to take me down the mountain. When I left the village, many people in the village made sarcastic remarks. "Oh, married a good husband and still putting on airs here. What a spoiled young lady you are. Who do you think you are?" Liao Jie is really unlucky to have ended up with a wife like you. Grandma turned around, patted my hand, and then lashed out at those people with a few whips. "Get out.
Get out.
How dare you filthy things come near my Lily?" Several people cursed and grumbled, but they couldn't withstand the sting of Grandma's whip and ran off. "Lily, that Liao Jie is no good.
He's
Always been disgusting. If you want a divorce, Grandma knows Judge Zhang in the
city.
he can help you draft the divorce
Papers.
Grandma was a young lady of high standing in her time. Though she now tends sheep in the countryside, the connections her family has built up over the generations are more than enough to help me out overcome the immediate difficulties. She dropped me off at the entrance of the fertilizer factory,
Then
wobbled away with the ox cart toward the
city.
I wiped my tears and turned to enter the factory. When I returned home from work in the evening, there were new bowls and chopsticks on the table.
It
Was bought by Wang Yinan, and my husband kept praising her good taste. "I'm tired of looking at these bowls and chopsticks at home. Fresh ones are better." He packed away the old bowls and chopsticks, stuffed them into a box, and
moved it outside the door.
every day, scrap collectors pass by the door.
And
These old bowls and chopsticks were bought by me the year we got married.
right.
This afternoon, there was an old lady who came to the gate in an ox cart and started scolding. So I splashed a basin of foot-washing water on her.
Ha ha.
She was so funny. Ho how bragged while swinging his legs on the chair.
The
Moment I heard it, I didn't hesitate to slap him. Anti-shoe. The kid was terrified by me, covering his face as he stood up. Wang Yinan rushed over and hugged the child, tears streaming down her face in silent sorrow. "Lily, don't panic." Liao Jia had intended to stop her but was a second too late.
he stood
Up regretfully to explain. Maybe.
It wasn't Grandma.
I ignored Liao, trying hard to stop my trembling body, and stared at Hao as I asked, "What was that Grandma wearing?"
How timidly
Replied, "Just a black coat with holes
in it.
Hearing this, my heart ached so much that I burst into tears. Grandma really did come here I can hardly imagine how she made it to the door, ready to stand up for me, only to be doused with cold water by this kid. Splashed over. The night was so cold. How did she manage to go back wearing those drenched clothes? At this thought, my heart felt as if it were being torn apart and I wanted to rush out, but Liao held me back. Lily, don't worry. At this hour, Grandma must have already gone back. You still have work tomorrow. Calm down. He tried hard to stop me, and even that Wang Yan and
joined in.
Yeah, Lily, your grandma will
be fine.
Hearing this, I looked at her. This afternoon, when it was just you and your son at home, why didn't you control your son then? Wang Yan's face turned red as she bit her lip and remained silent. Who told that old lady
to scold my mom?
She deserved it.
How?
How loudly retorted. Even Liao Jia stood on their side. Yeah, Lily. Actually, this matter is also your fault. If you hadn't gone back to complain to Grandma, Hao wouldn't have. I directly shook off his hand. I rushed up to Hao, grabbed his collar and said word by word, I just want to ask you, in these past 2 years, haven't I brought you plenty of food every time I visited the orphanage? Your winter clothes, summer clothes, even the coat you're wearing right now. They were all bought with my salary.
How
dare you use my things, yet show not a shred of remorse toward my grandmother? Wang Yandin wiped her tears, tried to pry my hand open but couldn't. Then pouted her lips again. I turned to look at her. Stop, __ pretending with me. Your son was as timid as a mouse in the orphanage, daring to splash water on an old person like that. Wasn't it you who taught me this? I know her intention was to deliberately have her son provoke me at the dinner table. Sure, I let go of her, and under Liao's shocked gaze, flipped the entire dining table over.
As
you wish. Tonight, no one will have it. Easy. Amid the sound of shattering dishes and utensils, food spilled everywhere, leaving the room in complete chaos. Get out, Shu Lily. Liao Jie was completely exasperated. We haven't even had dinner yet. What's gotten into you? The scalding soup splashed onto my arm, leaving a red, swollen patch. When he noticed, his gaze softened again. Lily, stop being so temperamental.
Okay. He
reached out to hug me as usual, but I dodged his embrace. Things have come to this point today, and I think it's time to speak up. Liao Jie, let's get a
divorce.
I don't want to be with you anymore. Liao Jie paused, not quite processing it. After all, in his view, marrying someone with his clean family background was supposed to be my privilege. Lily, I apologize for not picking you up at Grandma's house this morning. It was my fault. He took out a silver bracelet from his pocket and put it on my wrist. This was what he had promised during the new year. Back when he said, I'll save up to buy Lily a bracelet. Right now, I can only afford
silver.
From now on, buy Lily a gold bracelet. Now, as the bracelet sits heavily on my wrist, I feel unbearably uncomfortable, as if it might scorch through my skin. Tears welled up uncontrollably, and I quickly took off the bracelet, handing it back to him so I could free my hands to wipe my tears. Didn't you hear me? I choked back my voice, wanting to say it again, but a wave of discomfort hit my chest. I coughed twice and unexpectedly coughed up blood. Lily, my head spun in waves of dizziness as he helped me lie down on
the bed.
This pneumonia, why does it keep coming back? He frowned as he skillfully handed me the spatoon and patted my hair. Lily, I was wrong before. No sooner had he spoken than Xiao's wails echoed through the living room. Mom, what's wrong with you? Liao Jie beside me dashed out instantly. The next morning when I woke up, there was medicine by the bedside along with a glass of water. The house was empty and the living room remained in disarray. Liao Jie had also left me a note. He said that Wang Yanan needed to be hospitalized for treatment due to severe tinnitus. The textile factory where Yan used to work was dirty and exhausting. Just take a look at her rough hands and weary expression and you'll know how hard her life was. Not easy. Also, I didn't have enough money, so I came back to take your salary for these 2 months. Keep wearing that bracelet. I bought it for you as promised. I watched, unable to suppress a bitter smile. Every word was filled with concern for Wang Yanan, using my salary to pay for her treatment. I couldn't even bear to spend money treating my own lung disease, saving up just to live a slightly better life. And just like that, he took it all fresh and crisp to spend on someone else. Liao Jie, have you forgotten that I got this pneumonia from working at the chemical plant? After recovering for a long while, I got up, tidied the living room, and then headed in the direction of the chemical plant. It's already noon. I'm definitely going to get scolded by the team leader again, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to resign. After resigning, I went to the city again. When I returned home in the afternoon, I brought along that Judge Zhang. Liao Jie was cooking in the kitchen with Xiao Ha. When he saw me return, the first thing he asked about wasn't my health. Did you leave work early today? He frowned. What about the impact on your salary this month and next? The family urgently needs money. I couldn't be bothered to respond, covering my mouth as I coughed. Lily, I'm sorry. Are you feeling any better? He came to his senses and helped me sit down. Only then did he notice Judge Zhang behind him. Who is this? He asked. Only after Judge Zhang conveyed my intention to divorce to her did he stand up as if he had heard some outrageous joke. This is impossible. Where does this idea of divorce come from? Besides, Lily and I have only been married for 2 years and our relationship is just fine. What? Divorce? Uncle Zhang looked at me then, asked him, but this is your wife's wish. Don't you care at all? Liao Jie froze then, quickly denied it the next second. Stop talking nonsense. As long as I don't sign, no one can make us divorce. Uncle Zhang adjusted his glasses and said, I'm here today to investigate, to check whether your marital relationship is harmonious and to ask your workplace about each of you, ask about oneself. Inquire with the neighbors about your recent situation. Anyway, if my investigation confirms that the facts are exactly as your wife described, you might want to consider signing. Uncle Zhang left and Liao Jie looked at him as if he was sick, not taking it seriously. Lily, recently you might need to come home quickly after work to cook. I have to take care of Yan. Make the food lighter. The doctor said she can't eat anything spicy before he could finish. I responded calmly. I quit my job. Liao Jie was very angry because the burden of the family now fell solely on his shoulders. But considering the current situation at home, he gritted his teeth and tried to comfort me. Fine, I'll earn the money. It works out. You can cook and take care of Xiaoa. He needs to go to school. I shook my head and looked up at him. Figure out your own meals. I won't take care of Xiaoa either, and I won't spend a single cent of your money. Liao froze. Then what are you going to do? I said slowly. I want to start a business to make money and then leave you. Liao Jie suddenly laughed, then criticized. You're engaging in speculation and sideline activities, neglecting your proper duties. I retorted, Don't you know that many people along the southeastern coast are doing business now? Seeing his stunned expression, I suddenly realized, yes, he didn't know. To him now the city is
vast.
The provincial capital is distant and bustling, and beyond the provincial capital lies an unknown world. But I'm different. I have memories from decades later. Now the country is pushing for urban development, and there's a huge demand for landscaping. Those roadside areas and parks all need new plants transplanted. So given my current capabilities, the way to make money is to lease a piece of land and start a
Nursery.
After all, for years later, the provincial capital Kunming will host a grand world horticultural exposition.
As
Long as I start now, if everything goes smoothly, by 1999 I can use the platform of the exposition to expand and strengthen the nursery. Liao Jia didn't have time to ponder my words.
he was
Busy every day with work and taking care of Wang Yinan. Xiao's meals were entrusted to the hospital cafeteria.
I
Went back to my hometown and explained the situation to my grandmother.
she
Fully supported my decision to divorce. Upon hearing about my plans to start a business, she immediately sold all the family's cattle and sheep. She even gave away the farmland and the old family house to others. When all this money was added up, it turned out to be quite a substantial sum. Grandma shoved it all into my hands at once, scratching her head as she said, "Grandma can finally put down these burdens. From now on, whatever Lily wants to do, Grandma will help her do it." Grandma and I found a plot of land in the suburbs since winter was approaching. The moment people heard I wanted to lease the land, they immediately agreed without hesitation. My grandmother and I spent some money to buy bricks and built a small house on that piece of land for the next few
years.
All our daily necessities, food, clothing, shelter, and transportation, were taken care of there. Later, we went to buy some plastic sheeting and carried back many bamboo poles, each 3 to 4 m
long.
These were what I planned to use for greenhouse seedling cultivation.
The
soil in the field has been tilled, and with a river nearby, irrigation won't be an issue. All these scattered tasks took us a month in total. Next comes the selection of seedling varieties. There are 2 methods available using seeds or cuttings. Coincidentally, I had a classmate who worked at the municipal bureau during my school days.
he was in
Charge of this very area, and I planned to ask that friend for some seeds and cuttings. Before that, as money was running low, I went back home, never expecting to witness that scene.
on the
Day I returned home, it was unusually snowing. The room was filled with lively chatter, sounding incredibly warm and
cozy.
it seems Wang Yanan has been discharged from the hospital. Pushing open the door against the wind and snow, the icy air dispersed the warmth inside. Wang Yanan was nestled in Liao Jia's arms, watching her son bounce around with a contented smile. And on her wrist was the very bracelet Liao Jie had given me. Before leaving home, I had placed the bracelet under my pillow. Somehow, it ended up on her wrist. Perhaps the bracelet was a bit too glaring. I rubbed my eyes dryly.
Liao
Jia immediately let go and stepped far away from Wang Yanan. Then he came over and pinched my hand. "Lily, why did you take so long to come back? You must be freezing, right?" I ignored him, sidestepped past him, disregarding the disappointment on his face, and walked into the room. "Lily, you've been disappearing all month. What have you been up to?" He followed me in, closed the door behind him, and embraced me from behind. I put the rest of my money into an envelope, tucked it into my pocket, and then pushed him away.
What are you doing? He clearly saw my
movements, and his expression grew somewhat tense. Lily, are you really going to leave me? Liao Jie's voice
trembled slightly.
Shoo, Lily, is it really just for that so-called business plan of yours? I shook my head.
Our
relationship is already broken. I don't need you anymore, Liao.
Yeah.
With that, I walked out of the room only to be grabbed by him outside. Emotional breakdown. He looked somewhat angry.
Shoo, Lily.
Have you forgotten who it was that married you without caring about your background? What did you say back then? You promised to be with me for a lifetime. His tone intensified, startling Wang Yinan and her son.
Here
we go again.
How annoying.
I frowned and broke free from his grip, rubbing my sore wrist as I looked up at him.
Yes.
Now I'm the one who's changed first.
Is
that okay? It's my fault for not knowing what's good for me. It's my lack of manners. I admit it all.
So now can you
let this ill-mannered person leave?
As I
spoke, I pulled open the door to the outside. Liao Jie gritted his teeth and called out to stop me again. This time, his tone had calmed down.
Before you
leave, explain the burns on Xiao's arm. First, he lifted Xiao's wrist, pulled off the bandage to show me. There was a patch of burns on it. Shoo, Lily, you knew perfectly well I didn't have time to take care of Xiao. Why didn't you set up the heating charcoal for him? In the winters of those years, the only way to keep warm at school was to bring your own pre-burned coal. It was carried in discarded iron cans as wide as a palm, with wire handles threaded through both sides to carry it to school. During class, you could place that simple little stove under your legs to stay
warm.
And Xiao, because there was no one at home to help him, had to handle this little stove himself, which was how he burned his arm. But I frowned helplessly and looked at him. Your first love son got hurt. What does that have to do with
me?
Liao Jie sneered and tightened his grip on my hand again. Of course it
does.
You're his adoptive mother.
His
injury is your responsibility. I was so angry I laughed. Then what about you, the adoptive father? Your mind wasn't on your adopted son. Don't you bear any responsibility? And you, the birth mother. I turned to look at Wang Yinan, his biological son. Did your ear surgery sever your hands? Did it mute your
mouth? Couldn't you? Have you asked how
your own son is doing? Oh, I see.
I
sneered at her.
All your thoughts are on
seducing my husband. As for your son, you've already abandoned him once.
Do
you even care about abandoning him a second time? My words left both mother and son with pale faces.
Clearly, Xiao
silently glanced at his mother, and an inevitable rift emerged between them. Shoo, Lily, don't interrupt, Liao pulled my attention back. Today, either you give an explanation before leaving or you leave all the money in your pocket for Xiao as medical expenses.
I
frowned. I still needed this money for buying seedlings and treating people to meals. You can't bear to lose money, can you? Liao Jie let out a sigh of relief and whispered in my ear with a hint of madness. If you don't compensate, you're not allowed to leave.
Stay by my side. I
looked up at him, and his current demeanor somewhat resembled the stance he once had when he insisted on marrying no one but me.
Could it be that Liao
Jie would also have moments of reluctance to let me go? Unfortunately, the current me only wants to leave as soon as possible and focus on my own affairs. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, and Wang Yinan, who had been watching from the side, hurried to open
it.
Liao Jiaho seemed to have a premonition as he shouted, Yan, don't open the door. Unfortunately, the door opened. Entering was Uncle Jong, the judge, covered in snow. Today, I'm here to handle the divorce proceedings for you, too. He took out the photocopied civil mediation document from his pocket, then slowly turned his gaze to
Liao.
Just now, when I was outside, I seemed to hear you say something like, if you don't pay, you can TT.
Leave.
Is this extortion or a threat? His eyes were scrutinizing and Liao's lips turned pale before he quickly shook his head and let go of me. Nothing of the sort, Your Honor. Only, when Uncle Jong took out the papers did he finally believe it, looking at me slowly with an incredulous gaze.
Shoo.
Lily, are you really serious about divorcing me? Judge Jong let out a cold laugh and motioned for us to sit down. I've already found out everything. Neither of your workplaces is very familiar with your family situations, but currently the assessments of your characters are the price is quite reasonable. Your neighbors did say that Wang Yinan was indeed your first love, and it's absolutely true that you brought her back because of her and her
child.
You and Xu Lai have argued repeatedly, and your relationship has indeed broken down. I've also been to Xiao's school, the hospital where Wang Yinan had her surgery.
Liao.
Jier's head sank lower and lower with these words until he finally interrupted Judge Zhang. Judge Zhang stared at him and asked, Liao Jier, is it true that you and your wife, Xu Lai, have an irreparable breakdown in your relationship? Is it true that during your marriage, you fell in love with your first love and brought her home? The room was very quiet with only the howling cold wind outside.
Judge
Zhang's voice was authoritative.
Liao.
Jia reluctantly glanced at me and finally had no choice but to nod in admission. There was indeed a dispute, but it was all due to a moment of foolishness on my part. Judge Zhang, shook his head. Liao Jier clenched his teeth, picked up the pen, and signed his name on the mediation agreement. After signing, I held the divorce agreement in my hands, unable to process it for a long time. Am I really divorced? Overwhelmed with joy, I couldn't help but smile, then turned to look at Liao
Jier.
It seemed like my smile had wounded him. The entire afternoon that followed, Judge Zhang stayed in the house, helping us divide the marital property equally, from large items like wardrobes, tables, and chairs to small things like pots, pans, and dishes. Everything was split right down the middle. Liao Jier leaned against the door frame of our room, looking as if he could barely stand, his whole demeanor clearly unwell. Outside, the sky began to darken and the street lights flickered on, casting a warm golden glow over the world beyond. I was so excited that I paid a man to help me tie all the sorted furniture onto the ox cart.
I
planned to move all my belongings back to the nursery tonight. Grandma was still waiting for me to come home.
Judge
Zhang had also returned, with everything still in disarray. As the only judge, he had to run around personally verifying facts for various disputes. Lily. Liao Jier called out to me just as I was
about to leave.
I turned back, and he suddenly seemed a bit tongue-tied. Dinner's ready inside. Maybe you could eat with us before heading back.
Great.
He pointed to the dining table behind him where Wang Yinan and her son were seated. For a fleeting moment, it felt as if I had returned to my past life. Every time I drove Liao Jier to their exclusive little villa for the three of them, he would always call me in to have dinner together. Back then, I would look past his shoulder at the mother and son, their faces wearing identical expressions of weariness and resistance. Now, having lived a second life, I don't even need to look to know what expressions they're wearing. Ridiculous. fighting over just one man.
Do they
Really think he's some kind of treasure? Just like countless times in my previous life, I rejected Liao Jie. No need. Grandma is waiting for me to come home for dinner. Then the snow outside is so heavy.
Why don't you stay
Overnight? He stammered his question. And when I turned to give him a cold glance, it was like pouring a bucket of icy water over him. He immediately fell silent. Liao Jie came to his senses.
We
Were already divorced. That evening, after having dinner with Grandma, I moved all the furniture down overnight. We worked until the early hours of the morning, then pulled out a quilt, laid down 2 wooden planks, and made do with sleeping like that before bed.
Grandma
Stroked my head and sighed with emotion. My dear Lily has grown up. Grandma is truly pleased. Whatever my dear Lily does, Grandma will support you and be with you. The next day, Grandma accompanied me as we trudged through knee-deep snow to ask her classmate, working at the Municipal Bureau for saplings. That winter, Grandma and I spent every single day together in the greenhouse. Many small seedlings were moved inside, seeds were sown, and some were prepared for cuttings. During this time, Liao came by once, riding the 28 inches bicycle I had been nagging about not buying for over 2 years. On the bicycle's rear seat sat Wang Yanan and her son. They stood on the high ridge of the field while my grandmother and I stepped out of the greenhouse, squinting at them in the snow. Liao Jie stood there without saying a word, staring at us like a block of wood seething with resentment. In contrast, Wang Yan and her son were laughing and playing
nearby.
When they got tired, they stood beside Liao Jie watching me and
Grandma.
The silver bracelet on Wang Yanan's wrist still gleamed, even more glaring against the snow.
The
thought of her wearing something I once wore made me sick. Grandma saw through my thoughts and scolded at the top of her voice.
What are you flaunting that
shabby bracelet for? This old lady has seen all kinds of fine treasures and
jade.
How unlucky. Liao Jie suddenly woke up and glanced back at Wang Yanan. Later, they left. The cold wind howled for several months, and Grandma and I persevered through it all. Finally, as spring arrived, the seeds sprouted, and the cuttings began to grow green leaves. Before this, Grandma and I had already been tending to dozens of pots of winter jasmine and red elas in the neighboring
shed,
their plump buds ready to burst into bloom, into full bloom.
The
classmate from the Municipal Bureau proactively reached out to us, saying the city has a section of road that will use winter jasmine and elas, and ours
happened to be just in time. Hey, my
Grandma and I were overjoyed that day. My classmate brought people to pick up our flowers, and we happily helped carry them all morning. This is our first business deal, and the earnings far exceeds several months of my salary. Grandma held my hand and instructed this. Money isn't for food and drinks.
We're
going to buy flower seedlings. I nodded, stuffed the money into my pocket,
and as
I looked up, I spotted Liao Jie on the distant field ridge. This time he was riding a bicycle without Wang Yanan and her child by his side.
He took the
initiative to come down and strike up a conversation with me. I've already asked Yan to take off the bracelet,
he
said dryly. Even though we were once married for 2 years, he was uncharacteristically nervous facing me. Seeing him try to shove the bracelet into my hands, I quickly stepped back. No, I find it disgusting, I said disdainfully, finally venting the resentment in my heart. Don't worry, I had someone clean it. The bracelet is
spotless.
Or I could buy you a new bracelet. He eagerly tried to convince Me, Lily, she was the one who wanted to wear the bracelet. I didn't even notice. I smiled slightly. Then, how did she know? The bracelet was under my pillow?
Did
She search the bed or roll over it?
Liao
Jia's face turned awkward, and he fell silent. I gave him a disdainful glance and said slowly, "No need to buy me a silver bracelet because now I can afford a gold one myself." Liao Jie seemed quite disheartened.
and for a
Long time afterward, he didn't appear by the field ridge again. Time passed quickly. In the first year, my grandmother and I broke even.
in the
Second year, we leased another plot of land in the suburbs. It became our second nursery. At the same time, most of the city's landscaping needs were supplied by our two nurseries.
my
Grandmother and I couldn't handle everything by ourselves, so we hired 4 or 5 people to help.
in the
Third year, I bought a small, Western-style house in the city for my grandmother. She was getting older, and her health wasn't as good as it had been in previous years. But my grandmother wasn't happy about it and even threatened to hit me with her cane.
she
Said, "Don't dislike Grandma for being old. Grandma can accompany good Lillian doing anything." I choked up and nodded vigorously, never again saying anything about letting Grandma rest by herself.
I
Heard that Liao Jie was laid off by the power plant that year, so he went to the chemical plant where I used to work. Every weekend after work, he would ride his 28 inches bicycle to the suburban nursery to see me. He still stood far away on that field ridge. The trees in the nursery had grown taller than me, and I didn't want to see him, so I deliberately walked bent over, hiding among the trees. Thus, Liao Jia stood there frowning until dusk, then lowered his head and went back. The fourth year. This year was 1999. The provincial city's World Horticultural Expo was finally about to open. I've been preparing for this exhibition for 3 years, and at this moment I'm filled with nothing but excitement.
the day
Before, I bought clothes for Grandma and planned to go to the provincial capital. Liao found me. At that time, Grandma and I were living in a small Western-style
house.
I don't know how he found us, but he just stood outside the yard without saying a word. Faintly, there were a few
coughs.
I walked over and asked him what was the matter, and he actually started crying. "Lily, it's been 3 years since the divorce. Do you still hate me?"
Liao
Jay's voice wasn't as strong as it used to be, and he seemed to have shrunk a little in stature. He was still wearing the blue work uniform from the fertilizer factory, but his face was clean with a few water droplets on it. He must have washed up specifically to see me. I washed my face on the way.
I
Didn't answer him because there was no
need.
Now I feel neither hate nor love for him. He is like air to me, stirring no ripples in my heart.
Seeing that I
Didn't respond, he covered his mouth and coughed again, then opened his hand only to reveal traces of blood. "Lily, just like you, I've been in the decomposition plant for too long and developed pneumonia. Has your pneumonia gotten better?" he asked softly. I replied, "It's been healed for a long time."
in
The second year of earning money, Grandma took me to the hospital and got it treated. Liao nodded, then turned and patted his 28 inches bicycle. "Lily, I just realized how sharp the gravel is on the road from the fertilizer factory to home. It really hurts to walk on."
no
Wonder during those 2 years we were married, you kept insisting I buy a bicycle. After finally saving up some money, it all went to my illness.
me.
Boa, I'm sorry, Lily, back then.
I said,
Your background wasn't good. Those words
hurt you.
Actually, it wasn't that I looked down on you, but rather I felt Inferior. You had a higher education, were clever, and now you even have a good business sense making money. Actually, when I married you before, it wasn't entirely out of spite. I really did like you.
Seeing that I wasn't
Speaking, he coughed and reached through the railing to touch me. Lily, are you listening? My thoughts had already drifted to tomorrow's expo, and I just nodded perfunctorily. I drove Wang Yan and her son away. After taking them to see you, I scolded her harshly. At that time, I heard Grandma's words, and then I saw your expression. I felt terrible. And suddenly, I started to dislike Wang Yanan. He spoke so tenderly. Yet I suddenly let out a laugh. Liao Jia froze for a moment, and I met his gaze.
What's
the point of saying all this now? Who are you putting on this sentimental act for? Liao Jia, at your core, you're just a greedy person. You actually know everything in your heart. You know my grievances and concerns.
You know Wang
Yanan's tactics, but you're just wallowing in it. Because no matter how we fight, you're always the one who benefits. But now the balance between us has been broken. With only Wang Yanan by your side, you're picking which of us is better. Only when people lose something does their pig-headed brain start working. But so what? I glanced at him indifferently. Someone like you deserves to live in regret forever.
Liao
Jia, go live your miserable life and stop messing with mine. That night, Liao Jia crouched under the fence for a long
time.
It wasn't until the early hours of the next morning, when it was time to go to work at the processing plant, that he finally pushed his bicycle away. Meanwhile, I had already enjoyed a good night's sleep, put on makeup, changed into the clothes I bought with my grandmother, and boarded the train to the provincial capital with her.
The
expo began, and I was fully confident